Good afternoon, everyone. I think we'll make a start right there. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Luxury Property Forum's webinar special. This webinar is in partnership with Accouter Group, who have assembled the heavyweights from the luxury industry for their Global Wealth and Luxury Report. We've had an amazing response, so thank you all so much for joining. I'm your host, Priya Rawal, the founder and CEO of the Luxury Property Forum. For those of you who don't know, the Luxury Property Forum is the official forum for the luxury property sector, bringing together highly experienced and devoted members handpicked from every discipline. We facilitate the advancement and continuous growth of the luxury property industry through developing strong business collaborations, cultivating growth opportunities, as well as sharing knowledge, experience, and contacts. We are more than just a network, we are a forum for the future. In today's webinar, we're going to discuss the impact of the rise in private wealth and the steep increase in ultra-high net worth individuals globally. We will explore the impact this is having on key areas of the luxury industry. The luxury industry is an ecosystem in which property, retail, culture, and hospitality all work together. In the wake of the pandemic, we will chart the past, and whilst we are living through still uncertain times, we look optimistically, yet realistically, to the future. We are so fortunate today to be joined by real pundits to give their insight. We have Charlie Walsh, Head of Residential Sales and Marketing at Westminster Development Services, the OO. Elio, owner and founder of House of Luxury and co-founder of the HOFA Gallery, the House of Fine Art. Lisa Warner, Marketing Director at Abercrombie & Kent. Arash Gatanay, Executive Director at Cult Wines. Tara Walsh, Director at Knight Frank Interiors, currently working on Atlantis the Royal. Karis Samuelson, Director at Bazaar, the online interior store. And Esra Kumbasar, Director at Accouter Design. I'm now going to hand over to Alec Watts and Lottie Simonson, who have prepared an introductory film for this report.
Thank you for joining us for the launch of Accouter's very first Global Wealth and Luxury Report. So, why are we doing this? Well, I saw a quote in last weekend's Financial Times How to Spend It from Jo Ellison, the editor. She said, "Luxury may not be a necessity, but it's a source of optimism." Having come through some significant global changes in the last 18 months, we thought it would be a good time to try and get some sense of where we had been and where we were going to in terms of global wealth and the changing dynamic of what luxury is and some of the new expectations that surround it. To talk us through some of the highlights, I'm very pleased to introduce our very own Lottie Simonson from AGC's Accouter, who, with Dataloft, have played a key part in putting together this report for us. Over to you, Lottie.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Lottie Simonson, Associate Director here at AGC, and thrilled to be launching our very first Global Wealth and Luxury Report in partnership with the Luxury Property Forum and Dataloft. As so I don't keep you tied to your screens all day, I've selected just a few of the key findings we have unearthed surrounding this topic and wanted to share with you. Should you wish to see the whole report at a later date, it will be available for download at agofc.com. So hopefully, should technology be behaving itself, you should now be able to see the report flash up in front of you. Our main aim in pulling this report together was to provide insight into the predicted growth, demand, and changing requirements in luxury real estate and living. To provide context to the findings, we are delighted to have drafted in the help of a number of the world's top experts in luxury real estate, art, wine, and travel, amongst others, some of whom have very kindly joined us on the panel of speakers today. So starting from the top, I would like to draw your attention to the whopping predicted 30% increase in luxury online sales and how this is going to change the luxury landscape going forward. Historically, it could be said that luxury e-commerce was met with a degree of skepticism. But this is clearly changing, and luxury retail and a growing number of pioneering platforms such as Net-a-Porter are revising the luxury consumer's thinking. This trend has only been amplified since the pandemic, and industries that might have been previously lagging behind are now catching up. A good example of this is the world of super prime real estate, where high net worth individuals have been forced into purchasing properties, sometimes worth tens of millions, without ever stepping a physical foot into the space. Instead, the industry is having to quickly adapt, as evidenced by the huge investment into PropTech and various new platforms we have seen emerging of recent. Something that AGC have also invested in with the launch of our luxury online marketplace, Bazaar. It will be interesting to see if this pattern continues across the luxury space and has a lasting impact, or whether we will see people reverting to the more intimate nature of face-to-face sales once the pandemic ceases to be a dominant driving factor in an individual's decision-making. Given the slightly bumpy road that the UK has found itself on over the past several years, with the uncertainty caused by Brexit and of course now COVID, I think it is also important to highlight that despite these challenges, we remain ranked in the top 10 countries for the volume of ultra-high net worth individuals, with London also ranking as one of the top 10 cities globally. These global numbers are only further inflating, with the ultra-wealthy benefiting from rising global stock markets and increased property prices. Most of these fortunes being made in countries such as India, Egypt, Vietnam, China, and Indonesia. It's worth noting that parts of Africa are also seeing fast growth in this respect. With these markets outpacing others over the next 5 years or so, it will once again be interesting to see how this plays out and what the impact might be on luxury consumerism trends in the future. Referring back to my first point regarding the rise of online sales, other changes in consumer behaviour are being experienced in search for more sustainable and conscious purchasing options. With the facilitation of platforms such as YouTube and Instagram fashioning a whole new world of content creators, we are seeing an overwhelming increase of wealth within millennials and Generation Z, who are predicted to make up to 50% of the luxury market by 2025. Of this group, 30% are willing to pay more for sustainable products, which is only set to increase further as the world responds to the global crisis. Luxury industries are no exception, are already making huge efforts to invest in this new future ahead of us. Lying at the pinnacle of their industries, luxury brands have inherently been gifted tools and the ability to provide sustainable products, now that people are looking to invest in quality over quantity. A trend we have certainly seen at Accouter, where clients are willing to dig deeper into their pockets to purchase timeless heirloom pieces which will last the length of time. If we can adjust our use of materials, labour practices, supply chain and all other elements encompassed within environmental and social sustainability for the better, we can together further encourage this pattern of changing consumerism and have a major impact on what must be one of the most critical global challenges we are currently facing. In conclusion, I think it's safe to say that these findings suggest the world of luxury is perhaps surprisingly looking like it will bounce back from the pandemic, and moreover offer considerable opportunities for creative and innovative thinking. Thank you for listening, and I will now pass you back to the lovely Priya, CEO and founder of the Luxury Property Forum.
Thank you very much, guys. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our wonderful panel today for our question and answer session. So if I can invite the panel to turn on their videos and turn their mute buttons off, we'd be happy to see you. Hello, everyone.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hello.
Hi.
Good afternoon.
That seems to have worked. Thank you, everyone, very much. Thank you all for joining, and thank you to Accouter for that fantastic presentation. We can't wait for the reports to be out. So I'd like to ask the panelists just now to introduce themselves and their companies, and then we'll go straight into the panel discussion. So Tara, could we start with you, please?
Hi, Priya. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining this afternoon. I'm Tara. I'm one of the directors here at Knight Frank Interiors, talking about one of our most recent projects, the Atlantis Royal.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And Charlie, could I come to you, please?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Charlie Walsh, and I'm the Sales and Marketing Director for the Old War Office development on Whitehall in London.
Thank you very much, Charlie. And Elio, could I come to you, please?
Sure. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Elio Dana, founder of House of Luxury, also co-founder of HOFA Gallery, House of Fine Art.
Fantastic, thank you. And Lisa, could I come to you, please?
Yep. Hi, Priya. Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Warner. I'm the marketing director for Abercrombie in Kent, luxury tour operator.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Lisa. And Arash, could I come to you, please?
Sure, Priya. Thanks for having me, and thanks for everyone for joining. I'm the executive director at Cult Wines. We're the global leader for wine investment. We have 200 million under management on behalf of our clients around the world. And what we do is we help wine enthusiasts and collectors amass portfolios of the finest and rarest wines, as well as work with investors around the world to construct portfolios for financial and asset appreciation.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Aris. And Karis, can I come to you, please?
Hi, everyone. I'm Karis Samuelson. I'm one of the directors at Bazaar. We're an online interior design service.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And finally, Esra, can I come to you?
Yes, hi. Hello, everyone. My name's Esra Kumbasar, and I am design director at Accouter Design.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Esra. So Esra, actually, the first question I'd like to come to you. So there are now more ultra high net worth individuals than ever before. We have over 25 million millionaires worldwide. In the wake of the pandemic, how would you describe the attitude of your ultra high net worth clients? And have you seen any changes in their spending behavior, especially when designing their luxury homes?
Yes, we have actually, Priya. It's been a hard 15 months, I'd say, trying to sort of entertain our high net worths, trying to bring the outside into their homes, especially. So they've been very much, wanting, AV in their homes, because obviously we've all been very, very much on a virtual basis. So not only were we creating studies left, right and centre, we were also very much concentrated in their virtual conferencing systems within their homes. And interestingly, this wasn't just about the business people, this was also about their children. So dedicated desking for children and their virtual, setups as well. So AV played a huge part, entertainment played a huge part in their homes. We were seeing people asking for simulators, like golf simulators. We were asked for a flight simulator in one of our for one of our clients. So definitely, they were looking at, how they were going to entertain themselves. A lot of emphasis was put on the kids, on their children. So play areas, lots of climbing walls, because I think most people were climbing up the walls at the same time as their children. So there was a lot of that going on. And bringing the outside in, we were very much, it was all about entertainment and really trying to bring those sort of, their landscaping into their homes and trying to combine, the two elements together. And generally, I think, with our particular clients, they were really very much looking to sort of create a retreat, a haven, somewhere where they could really sort of, spend some time. And in order to be able to do that, they had to sort of, build on what they already had.
Fantastic. No, and I completely agree with the climbing up the walls statement there. But hopefully we're on our way out of it. So Charlie, I'd like to come to you next. So the fact that global wealth has increased is fueled by it's international in nature. Most of the growth has been in Asia and in particular China. But of course, the impact of the pandemic on foreign travel and overseas investors has proven it difficult for luxury property developers. In your experience at the OO, what extent has this had an impact? And also, to what extent are you looking for overseas ultra high net worths for the OO?
Thanks, Priya. Good question. I'll answer the first part first, as it were. So I think absolutely the impact on sort of travel restrictions, I think for everyone on these panels has had a huge impact on us trying to create that sense of product awareness to our potential customers. and none, no more so much in terms of what we're doing at the OWO and the property side. So how have we adapted? Look, I think traditionally you've been able to have buyers come and see you, walk into your marketing suites, come into these incredible sort of show apartments, look, feel, touch, smell, and it's a very much a sensual sort of experience for people to really buy into what's inevitably going to be quite a significant purchase for them. So to create that without having the physical ability to show these to potential buyers is definitely a huge challenge. And I think a lot of developers, us included, have had to really embrace the technology side of the sales and of the sales and marketing element to property development, and that's everything from CGI, which has always been a sort of mainstay for off-plan sales anyway, but also virtual reality, creating bespoke Zoom platforms, which enables you to tailor make a digital and virtual journey for a potential buyer, which they can then go back and revisit. So it's been very much about embracing that technology piece. I don't believe at all, and thinking about Arash, for example, how do you sell a beautiful bottle of wine to somebody over Zoom? I mean, it's pretty impossible. So and it's very hard from a property perspective as well. And I think whilst we've all embraced this digital approach, and it does have a huge effect. So I think from our side, we've had great successes at the OWO with sales taking place over Zoom digitally when people haven't actually visited the property. However, I do think there is a ceiling to that. And going back to the sort of second part of your question, Priya, we have had a great, obviously, level of interest from overseas markets and particularly Asia as well. I think the Asian market is particularly accustomed to buying off-plan, sight unseen. So they are well versed with purchasing something without seeing it in person. So there has been great traction up to a certain level with those digital sort of sessions with potential buyers. However, I do think there's a ceiling to that, and over a certain price point, people want to come in, they want to see it, they want to touch it, they want to feel it, want to smell it, because it is a significant sum over a certain level. So that's certainly what we found. The second part of your question about international buyers, look, I think London is, by its very nature, is an extremely international city. And what is a Londoner? That is a key question. If you walk around zones 1 and zones 2, your Londoner is someone who probably owns maybe 2 or 3 homes internationally, might have dual nationality. So I think that is a Londoner by its very nature. Because of the lockdown and travel restrictions, we have seen more Londoners, quote unquote, and British interest in the OWO. But again, these are people who also have multiple homes globally and multiple nationalities as well. So it is an international product, and I think that's a hugely appealing factor for us because London is such a wonderfully multicultural city.
Definitely, and the OWO as a development itself is so British in nature as well. So it's a beautiful sort of mix of the both, isn't it? So Tara, I'd like to come to you next. So it seems sort of the pandemic has accelerated property trends, and sort of we've seen that impact all over the world. Taking into account the difficulties of last year, and apologies for sort of banging on about it, but what has been the impact in the increase in global wealth in the Middle East that you found, and in particular the impact with the work that you've done on Atlantis the Royal?
Thank you, Priya. I suppose just looking at Dubai as an emirate, there are 65,000 high net worth and ultra high net worth living there alone. So in terms of growth, that is still looking to grow by at least 25% between now and 2025, which is incredibly encouraging. So real estate is always going to be one of their favourite asset classes. They love property, whether it be locally or globally in some of the key cities. But just kind of focusing in on Atlantis the Royal, I suppose that was a time where actually demand, again, both locally and globally, didn't stop. Again, with things like virtual viewings, tours, and just looking at property, buying it without even seeing the product itself, which Lottie touched upon at the beginning of the report, it still proved incredibly popular, and something which kind of helped increase demand over the past 18 months.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Elio, if I come to you next. So one would expect with the decline in sort of physical auctions, the sale of art would also decrease, but it appears sort of collectability is still really important. So what has been your experience over the last year, and how do you think that buying trends sort of has changed in the art scene? And are people buying for passion as well as investment now?
Thank you, Priya. Yes, we have definitely seen a younger demographic collecting important works of art. As everyone mentioned, the demographic is similar in various sectors, particularly in Asia and USA. We with HOFA Gallery have locations in some of the key luxury destinations. So we have recently, with the reopening of traveling, we've seen a big boom again in physical sales as well, but we can definitely say that the last quarter of 2020 was by far the highest in online sales. We were very lucky because since our foundation back in 2011, 2012, we've only focused on selling high-end luxury goods such as collectible watches and fine art, all from online. So we have built a very strong following throughout our social media and a very strong database of clients with a large online reach. And since the pandemic, we have invested heavily in developing our own technology in the virtual reality world. And we've created what we call the VX, the virtual experience, and we recreated all sceneries and scenarios in different locations where we can offer luxury goods in a very new, innovative way. And going to your second questions regarding the younger demographic, we can see from an art point of view a decline in a demand for large editions, such as prints or large multiple sculptures with large multiple releases. But we have seen definitely a growth in the average spending for single items, where we see our average spending at the moment is reaching just above around $50,000. And we analyzed this through the Banksy art market and the Cause art market, and we saw definitely a decline in their editions, but definitely a steady growth as well in their original works. And from a collectible point of view, steel sports models such as Rolex and Patek have definitely seen a huge surge in collectible purchases.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for that, Elio. The technology element of that actually brings us very nicely onto Arash. So the pandemic, obviously, as we can tell, has taken all of our lives online. So how has the rise in technology and e-commerce affected the market for fine wines? And do you think that these changes are here to stay?
Yeah, good question, Priya. Firstly, I think it's been worryingly easy to consume fine wine at home during the pandemic period. I don't know if you guys feel the same way. So for us as a business, it's a good thing. And I think generally, bringing more participants to wine, it's helped. I'll go some way to explaining, how we got there. But, I remember at the height of the pandemic, friends and customers around the world, sharing WhatsApp photos with us for wines they're consuming at home, because obviously they couldn't go out to eat, or they couldn't go and share in these experiences. And we definitely saw that our clients around the world were prepared to upgrade their choices and spend more, because they're not necessarily they're not going to restaurants and paying the restaurant markup for wines. They're finding their fix, online. So that supported prices for fine wine during a period where hospitality and travel was closed, which was great. I think as an industry, fine wine is quite old as an industry. Some of the producers and the merchants and suppliers, they go back, 500 years in some instances. So some of the practices that existed 50 to 100 years ago in terms of, selling, presenting, moving goods, it's quite scary, but some of them still take place today. So the pandemic triggered, I would say, much needed change in our industry, and the acceleration of the digital transformation of fine wine for consumers
but also as an asset class category. You couldn't go to restaurants, right? So the sellers had to find different ways of reaching their audiences. So they went for a direct-to-consumer platform. The auction houses, real-life auctions, didn't take place, right? So they had to keep on going and keep doing keep putting the lots on and doing it online and achieving, amazing results and record-breaking prices as a result. I think, Elio, referred to that as well. From the winery's point of view, right, the whole thing about luxury and wine is that living that experience of going to a winery, meeting the winemaker, them telling you about the history, tasting the wines there, looking at understanding the terroir, the topography, the whole experience, right? You couldn't do that. So the wineries have had to adapt with virtual tastings on Zoom. So sending samples out to whether it's suppliers to distribute their wines or private individuals around the world that have been buying their wines for years to taste the product. And that's been a great experiment and adaptation, and it's worked very well. You had three of the largest events that have taken place in the wine market over the last 2 years have been Burgundy en Primeur, which happened in January, and Bordeaux en Primeur, which happened last year at the height of the pandemic, and again this year a couple of months ago. That whole campaign used to be in person. The whole wine industry would descend on those regions to taste the wines. They flipped it and it all went virtual. Samples were sent around the world to great success, and the campaigns sold, very well and found a market. So I think some of the changes that are taking place are actually here to stay. To go back to Charlie's point, when you're dealing with products that have that real assets, right, like wine, like watches, like cars, like property, there is a ceiling to that. I think there is now an urge for that experiential element around wine to come back into people's lives. But I think from the pandemic's basically broken down a lot of barriers to entry for fine wine globally. We've got more market participants, it's far more diverse, and I think some of these changes are really here to stay.
Definitely, and I completely agree that the pandemic has shaken things up in all types of the industry. But I suppose one thing that it has taken away from us, and we want to get back, is that experience, and feeling that touch and feel, and like Charlie said, that kind of almost sensual sense of luxury that there is. And Lisa, that brings us sort of nicely onto you, because hospitality and luxury travel, quite clearly has been heavily hit by this pandemic. But what are your clients demanding now? And have you seen sort of luxury traveler confidence return sort of since everything's kind of opened up?
Kind of opened up, yeah. Thanks, good question. It's travel has obviously been impacted quite heavily, and even now as we start to see borders opening up, navigating through the various rules and regulations can be a bit of a minefield for anyone, but we are starting to see confidence return. We know that our luxury travelers are desperate to travel. They haven't been able to for a long time, and they have the means to make it happen. So after months of not being able to, they're looking for unique travel experiences, but they want it to be seamless. They want it to be hassle-free as it used to be, and that's maybe not as straightforward as it used to be. So that's really where we come in and what they're coming to us for. So recently, as an example, we had a group of international clients who were desperate to go on safari, and they wanted it to happen no matter what. So we chartered a jet, flew them direct into a camp where they were able to, we organized for the immigration, for the necessary PCR tests, all to be done at the camp so that they could maintain their their safe travel bubble, if you like. And that's really where we're starting to see the confidence come back. People can come to us and we can arrange for that seamlessness that they're used to, and they get the joy back from travel. That's what they're looking for. So fingers crossed that the confidence continues to return.
No, definitely. And I suppose for travel, and especially for luxury travel, the whole point is that we put it into somebody like Abercrombie & Kent's hands. You guys deal with everything. And a part of that is now going to be, like you said, dealing with all the COVID sort of restrictions and, taking the headache out of it, I suppose, which, all of us mere mortals are probably feeling.
That's the goal.
Exactly. Well, fantastic. Thank you so much, Lisa. Esra, if I come to you, how have Accouter managed their global clients during the pandemic? Because, you know, quite clearly you've got clients all over the world. And just with regard to sort of that technology element of it, have any of the changes that you've put in place, are they here to stay?
Well, actually, as a company, we were pretty much set up virtually anyway. So our culture was actually leaning towards, you know, a virtual culture anyway. So from our point of view, it was actually as well. So yes, all of our
That's okay, Esra. We lost you for a second, but you can continue.
Yeah. Okay, am I back?
You're back. You're
I
back.
just had fibre put in, and it should be fine. So we were, you know, we've been very much, you know, working virtually with our clients anyway, globally, and anything where we had to show sampling, etc. We were very sort of clear about, you know, putting everything in the post. So the postal service was obviously very important to us. And so, you know, from that point of view, we somehow managed it, and I think we will carry on doing this. Where I'm not saying that, you know, we won't have one-to-one meetings, because, you know, face-to-face meetings are very important in this business. It's all about, you know, seeing your clients, meeting your clients, understanding them, you know, having that, you know, trust between you. And so, in order to be able to do that, you really need to do that face-to-face. Go for a coffee, have a chat, you know, and that's the way you sort of, you know, build those relationships up. So most definitely, you know, we will be in a position where we will have those, you know, one-to-one meetings again. But, you know, on the whole, you know, I definitely see that, you know, we've got more of a chance to do those virtual meetings now that everyone is a little bit more accustomed to them. And of course, I mean, this also helps with our carbon neutrality, you know, not, you know, sending us across the globes, you know, every, you know, 2 or 3 months to, you know, attend meetings. So this is all going to be a little bit more, you know, easier in the long run, as far as, you know, life is concerned for everyone, you know, so we don't have to do, you know, quite as much traveling as well. But we seem to have managed, and it seems to be working, and we are looking forward to meeting our clients face to face at some point, I think, hopefully in the very near future.
Definitely. And I think the point that you made about sort of the carbon neutrality is actually really important, because it is, you know, our sort of principles and our priorities sort of over the last 15 months have changed, and, you know, a lot of it is towards the things like sustainability. And Karis, that brings me on nicely to you. There's obviously been a lot of focus on buying better, and whether that's sort of, you know, the sustainability elements, or sort of just buying things that will last rather than sort of the fast fashion, even in the luxury world, I suppose, but appreciating the value of craftsmanship. So how has that affected the strategy in setting up Bazaar, and how have your clients responded?
Well, I think fortunately for us, even pre-pandemic, we've always had a strong company ethos with regards to our suppliers and craftsmanship. We've lent heavily towards the mantra, maybe you pay more once rather than paying less twice or repeatedly. So I think you can't put a value on the experience that we've gathered trialing and error, you know, with these suppliers. So we endeavor to offer the highest level of craftsmanship. You know, we've made sure that by the time an item appears in one of our projects, we've done all the legwork. So, you know, our clients are taking a leap of faith, and so we have to elicit their trust. So when you're one step away removed from the whole buying experience, when you're unable to touch and feel the quality, and you don't necessarily have that attachment to the item yet until it arrives, and then you can breathe a sigh of relief, that's the backbone of our strategy. You know, we work very diligently to make sure, through hand-picked suppliers and effective quality control, that our clients receive their dream product at the end of the day. So we've channeled years of experience into our procurement to ensure that they really receive an item that they're delighted with, and they've responded wonderfully because they genuinely see the value in investment pieces.
Definitely, and I think that's the key, isn't it? It's an investment piece, and that's how, you know, with Elio, with Arash, that you're always looking at sort of, you know, what's going to last for a long time. I want to bring the conversation back to real estate. So, so Charlie, if I come to you and bring it actually back to the UK, what do you believe is the most significant obstacle that the luxury property industry is going to have to overcome?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. It's one I've been sort of deliberating with over the last sort of 48 hours. There's so many obstacles, or one could label as obstacles, be it micro or macro. I think from a macro perspective, one of the obstacles could be the access and ability of those who are unable to afford or experience luxury property to tangibly see the benefit and good of what we're creating. And by that, I mean, I think developers, need to be cognizant of not creating these ivory towers, which are exclusive to large tracts of society. So whilst developers, as you know, have to contribute to things like Section 106 costs and affordable housing, these are quite often invisible contributions which are not related to developments, and therefore can create a them and us society. So I think the successful developers, in my mind, going forward, will create these beautiful, luxurious developments, but will have an element of it which is at street level, accessible to the wider population, so that they come along and marvel and appreciate what has been created and have some form of experience and touch point with that. So it doesn't become a them and us, which I think is very important going forward, especially as we see, I suppose, a greater diversification between the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah, I completely agree. And a little bit like we were talking to Karis about sort of buying better, it's sort of also about building better. And that's not just the development itself, it's the impact you have on the community and everything sort of around you. And, you know, that these luxury developments are long term, they're here to stay, and the impact that they have on sort of the London skyline is going to make a big difference, both sort of aesthetically and actually what they do for the communities. So so thank you very much, Charlie. Tara, if I come to you, so when looking at ultra high net worth investors who have an interest in residential property, what do you feel that they are actually looking for now? And do you sort of predict that there's going to be any significant buyer trends sort of coming out of all this?
Thank you, Priya. I think it, like everything, well thought out spaces, incredibly high-end interior finishes are always something that's going to be in high demand. But off the back of that, and just touching, I suppose, on what Esra was saying earlier, you know, the real need for some of those outdoor spaces, big terraces, roof gardens, balconies, just real creation of being able to enjoy the outdoor space and bring it inside as well. And ultimately, these people want to call these purchases their home, wherever it is in the world, whether it be in their home country or globally. And so there's that real desire then just to try and create that homely feel in all of the interior spaces that are designed. And that is something that when we were designing the show apartment at Atlantis the Royal, we really tried to encapsulate that in our design framework, trying to create that second home for those individuals. So it was literally moving home from home when they travelled.
Definitely. Well, thank you very much, Tara. Arash, if I come to you, we're going to now look at Brexit, because
thanks a lot. Thanks for that.
There's been two ugly words in here, and it's pandemic and Brexit. So you are our Brexit candidate for this particular bit. So the impact of Brexit and obviously the subsequent barriers for trade has no doubt been an obstacle for many luxury products. What's been your experience in the wine industry, and how do you plan to overcome any obstacles in the long run, in the long term?
I was really dreading answering this question.
I do apologise.
I'm a very passionate person. It's very difficult to be passionate about what I'm going to talk about. So this is kind of, I suppose this is like the unglamorous side of the fine wine industry. So, you know, focusing on logistics. And I think the loss of simplified border commerce with the EU and the difficulties in that, you know, transition period
have really led to a tumultuous Q1 and Q2 for the fine wine industry from a logistics point of view. So, essentially we're looking at, additional paperwork, additional product testing, additional customs checks, and bear in mind 55% of fine wine imported into the UK is from the EU. So what we've had to do in Q1 and Q2 is really kind of learn off the fly to understand how some of these changes impact on current processes and how we can support and mitigate against some of the risks in terms of the movement of goods. Our business is the fine wine segment of the market, so it's been definitely been less impacted than the kind of the bulk wine in general, less than £25 per bottle wine, for instance. But as recently as this week, actually, there was a massive announcement and a government U-turn on what's known as these VI1 forms. So essentially going back to additional paperwork, additional customs, product testing, and therefore additional costs and resources. The government this week, after strong lobbying from the Wine and Spirits Trade Association, a lot of industry professionals such as ourselves, have actually aborted those plans, which will save the wine industry here in the UK millions on a yearly basis. So that's good news. From our perspective, as a business, the concerns and uncertainty around a transition and the legislation afterwards has led to an average lead time delay of around 50% on goods coming in. So our clients, majority of them are long-term investors, and therefore we've got solutions to actually store the wines at source in Bordeaux or Burgundy, for instance. So we've been able to kind of navigate to a certain extent.
Definitely, and I think we're still so new into it. It's going to take a while to see the true impact.
Yeah, I think the dust hasn't settled yet, right? And we're still waiting for that dust to be hoovered up before we can actually look at this, situation with real clarity, unfortunately.
Have you seen an increase in British wines during this period, or is that sort of a trend?
Yeah, I think that trend that train started a long time ago, and like many things, the Brexit and the pandemic period about not being able to travel, for instance, has accelerated the trend and interest in wines domestically. But that was happening way before Brexit and the pandemic, and I think that's just a long-term market trend that we'll continue to see more of.
Definitely. Well, thank you very much, Arash.
No worries.
Well, to bring us sort of back, kind of still within the realm of Brexit, but also the Britishness elements of it. So, Esra, I wanted to come to you in terms of, sort of the design that you're providing for your clients, and there has been a trend in sort of luxury construction to celebrate British design, British craftsmanship. Sort of how important is that to your actual clients? And do you think that buying local will be favoured over buying international in the future?
Well, we have actually always pretty much bought local. We've always championed our local craftsmen and artisans. Our clients do tend to want, international product. And if our clients are, for example, in the Middle East, they do like the idea that it's come from Europe, it's come from the UK. They like the idea that it's a good quality product, it's handmade, etc. And whatever we do as far as our design ethos is concerned, we try and make it as unique as possible. So for them, it's by working with a designer or us in general, they're going to get something that we've quality controlled. If it's in the UK, we have better chance to develop it if it's in the UK. But having said that, it isn't just about the UK. When we are in other countries, and we there again we do have to source locally. You know, we're talking about carbon neutrality again. We get back to it again, so it does help us from, you know, from that point of view. You know, we've been working out in the Middle East. You know, we have our suppliers out in the Middle East as well, so we try and keep it as local as possible. Those artisans are really important to us, you know, especially in the UK, and it's always great to give back, you know, to the community, to, you know, our locals, rather than, you know, going too far and too wide. But yeah, absolutely, you know, it's important, and I think it will be something that we're definitely going to be, you know, doing, you know, in the long run. But as I said, it's not just about the UK, it's us sourcing locally around the world as well, wherever we are.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, and it's about sort of championing the area in which you're in, and you know, your clients wanting that sort of home from home, I guess, sort of thing.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
So Lisa, I'd like to come to you. The rising global wealth has correlated with the rise of exclusive travel and unique experiences. You touched on it a little bit before with the with this sort of experience that you gave as an example. How is Abercrombie & Kent adapting to accommodate for this increased demand? And if you have any case studies, it'd be really interesting to hear some.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think we have seen a rise of demand, and we've put a real focus in recent years on our product development, being creative, being innovative, and looking for sort of unusual experiences. That's what people are asking us for. We're fairly unique at A&K. We operate we have offices in over 30 countries, and we operate across all 7 continents. And that local network that we have, it delivers 2 things for us. It does help us with our sustainability ethos, which a lot of people have talked about today, in terms of supporting projects and giving back to the communities we visit. But it also allows us pretty insider access, if you like. So it allows us to find those experiences which we've seen pre-pandemic a growing demand for, that guests really want to be connected with the people and the cultures that they are visiting. So, I mean, one example I can give is we organized for a group of guests who were real foodies, who were going to Argentina, and we arranged for them to meet one of South America's most beloved chefs, Francis Malman, at his private retreat. Now he's famous for his open fire cooking. I think he has around nine restaurants around the world. But these guests got to meet him and learn for the master himself about his particular style of this wild open fire Argentinian cooking, whilst being surrounded by the elements and with the spectacular landscape, you know, of Patagonia as a backdrop. So it's those kind of unique, memorable experiences that we're always looking to source, so that our guests can feel they're connecting with the destination they visit in an authentic way.
And with regard to that, is that sort of all guests of all ages, or are you sort of seeing an increase in sort of younger generations coming to sort of these luxury experiences as well?
Yeah, there's definitely some younger travelers now who are looking for this. And again, they want authenticity, they want sustainability, they want to ensure that the places they're visiting are having a positive impact in that destination. And that's becoming more and more important. And that they are definitely shaping the way that we will travel in the future, for sure.
Definitely. And I think one thing that's obviously we've all been at home, we've all watched so many Netflix documentaries over the time that we've all been cooped up. People are a lot more aware of what's going on in the world, and I think, you know, that's going to have an impact on lots of parts of the industry. Elio, I'd like to come to you. You touched on the millennial generation and that younger demographic buying these extremely beautiful pieces of art and, you know, turning to collectibles. What trends have you seen in that particular part of the industry, and also what demands do they have which sort of the older generation may not have?
Absolutely. Well, we've seen obviously a big growth in collecting African art at the moment, and everything that has an African descent. In this very moment at HOFA Gallery in London, we have the first ever all-female of African descent exhibition called Mother of Mankind, and if you see across all of the top auction results, you'll see some of the largest growth is of African Black artists, and even some that have moved to Europe or United States. So there's definitely a big focus right now in collecting fine art that has that DNA. But also we focused for a very long time. Our roster of artists is predominantly female, and we think that that's been a very strong focus for us since our foundation. And again, yes, it was something that was very much left aside for so long. It was very, dominated by men culture, both in the luxury goods and in the arts sector. And we've seen that absolutely this is now a very important element to buy something that will retain its value, and that will definitely have a big growth in the future.
And has that been fueled by that younger demographic?
Absolutely. This is the interesting part, that it's sort of, I always feel that trends always have to come from a demand as well. So everything we're seeing is definitely a demand, and we have seen so coming out of the whole Black Lives Matters, and that was definitely a demand, and it definitely sets a trend. So usually, the fine art industry and the luxury collectible industry has very clear kind of patterns and trends and so on, and these have definitely been created from a need in our society, in our culture, to explore these. And even as a gallery, we realized we didn't really have that element. For example, in our roster of artists, we had focused for so long in developing women artists and artists from Asia particularly, and we realized that we were lacking on that element from Africa, for example, and we wanted to really celebrate it with the show Mother of Mankind, and it's been a tremendous success. The show is practically sold out within a week of opening, so yeah, we're very excited about it, and you can definitely feel that resonating in the market.
Fantastic, and it's so nice to get to physical shows again. I can imagine. So
yeah, no, absolutely. We took a new location on Bruton Street in February 2020, so you can imagine what sort of timing has been. We were closed from the day of opening. We were closed for 18 months, but as I said, we've managed to do a lot of virtual exhibitions and so on. But yes, it's absolutely not the same as everyone said. Experiencing luxury brands and luxury goods is by far the most exciting and interesting element of our business.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Elio. Karis, I'd like to
Pleasure.
ask you with regard to Bazaar, because we've talked a little bit about sort of the difference in generations of clients and whether it's sort of the younger demographic, the older demographic. You are an online luxury sort of interior design furniture sort of seller, I suppose. What has fueled the increase in demand for buying things online? Obviously, yes, it's the pandemic, but what is the increase in demand from the younger demographic, the older demographic? What are people buying?
I think it's definitely, we're moving towards the trend of maybe fewer items, but better items. So, access. Previously, I think luxury has been an extremely exclusive concept. And although that may be still the case, it's now very inclusive. So with social media and things like, Instagram and TikTok and whatnot, this aspirational living is so much more, I suppose you could say, viewable by a far wider demographic. So people are far more interested in buying high quality, high value items than they were previously, and I think they feel much more comfortable doing that because it's in a real world setting. So when you're looking at things on Instagram, you can see it in place, you can see its purpose, and people can be far more discerning at their own pace. And I think that's definitely driving the demand up. People are far more comfortable with large ticket online purchases now.
Definitely, I completely agree. Charlie, I'd like to bring it back to you because we've spoken about a few trends today. One of them is sustainability, and the other one is well-being. And they seem to be clear trends in luxury living as well. And I was going to say, to what extent has that sort of impacted the marketing strategy for new luxury property developments, including the OO? And how much does a potential buyer actually care about sustainability and well-being in comparison to the beautiful interiors and the luxury experience?
Yeah, good question, Priya. And I think sustainability has become a bit of a buzzword now. So it's become almost part of the fabric and almost expected amongst buyers in all marketplaces and amongst all producers of different lines of luxury goods. You know, from all those people, all the panelists on online today. And I think from a sustainability point of view, buyers will expect, for example, to have electric car charging points, you know, within a development. They'll expect to have renewable energies where possible within developments. Going back to Esra's point about sort of sourcing materials domestically versus internationally, there is a conscious bias of that people being aware of that. And we have things like BREEAM ratings for buildings throughout, you know, how green is your buildings, etc. So I think people do look at that. I think it is important. And I think I wouldn't say it's become a deal breaker for some of the buyers I've spoken to, but they almost expect it to be in place. So it's almost not asked about so much because they expect the sustainability points to be taken into consideration. In terms of the well-being side, I think, you know, I'm sure we've all of us around this Zoom screen have seen the significant increase in well-being, particularly past over the last 18-24 months with lockdown. Mental health, physical well-being, these are all really important parts in our lives going forward. And I think that plays a huge part into what we market our developments going forward. So whether it's gyms, personal training sessions, the latest equipment, pools, facials, the latest sort of health fads, etc. So these are all really important parts, because I think people are now aware that time is short. Look after your body, look after yourself, look after your mental health. And if you can buy into a development which offers that on your doorstep, you don't have to leave it, and the very best is available, then that's a hugely attracting factor to maintain that sort of that level of well-being. I think it is something that people really look into.
Definitely, and I completely agree. And we've clearly seen that the impact on well-being is more important now than ever before. Tara, I'd like to come to you. We've covered lots of areas of sort of luxury investment, and obviously focused heavily on things like property. But with regard to sort of looking at what your clients have been sort of buying, investing in, or whatever, has anything come as a surprise to you? And actually, I wanted to sort of carry on from Charlie's point with regard to well-being. Have you seen that be sort of an element of the design that you're putting into people's homes as well?
Yeah, I mean, good question, Priya.
I do apologise there. There's two separate questions there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think going on, I suppose, initially to the well-being part, it's always something that's carefully considered throughout design. You know, those kind of third, fourth bedrooms that we used to be fitting out as bedrooms or guest rooms, they're now turning into yoga rooms or snugs or chill out lounges, just something just to really create that relaxing feel throughout the property. In terms of trends as a whole, I think we are just kind of heading back to kind of those neutral spaces again. People used to be quite excited by colour and wanted something, you know, quite out there, poppy, just something real statement pieces.
But you stared at it for too long after over the pandemic. You don't want to.
But those statement pieces are still around, but maybe just slightly more muted. And again, just looking for something a little bit more lasting, hard wearing, and just kind of thinking about kind of their footprint in terms of what they're now purchasing.
Definitely. Oh, well, thank you guys so much for today. We've actually come to the end of the question and answer session, but I wanted to end the webinar today by asking each of the panelists, what does luxury mean to you? I know it's a question that's been bandied about so many times, but you know, a lot has changed over the last 15 months, and people's sort of view of luxury may well have changed as well. So I think it's time to ask the question again. So Tara, if I could come to you first.
Gosh, it is a question, isn't it? I mean, luxury is such a broad term, and everyone kind of looks at luxury in different ways. But I think given the last 12 to 18 months, I think luxury for me at the moment is just all about being healthy, both physically and mentally, something that none of us can take for granted. And then kind of once we have that luxury, we can enjoy all the others, like the art and wine and property and everything else that goes with it.
Definitely, I completely agree. Charlie, what about you?
Well, I think it's very hard to follow on from what Tara said, because I think she's probably hit the nail on the head. But
the person who goes last is going to be in trouble.
I think for me, luxury is it's an experience or sensation which is completely personal to that individual. And I know people say luxury is an experience. How do you quantify that? And I think it could be anything. The obvious thing is an Abercrombie and Kent unique holiday in the middle of nowhere. That's an experience, which is an amazing luxury. But it can also be an incredible bottle of wine from Arash, which makes you remember that bottle of wine with that individual in that setting. And that for me is a luxury. It's an experience and sensation that you will not forget.
Completely. Lisa, that brings me nicely onto you.
I mean, I think Charlie just took the words out of my mouth, really. I think the only thing I would add to what he said is something that's shared, with whether that's family or friends, and being able to share that experience. That's what creates lasting memories, right? So yeah, that's it for me.
Definitely, and it's something that we've all coveted for so long. Arash, what about you?
I don't really have much to add.
We've lost you a little bit anyway, so that's okay. So Elio, I'll come to you if that's all right.
Sure. I mean, like everyone said, I definitely think that luxury is, for me, a synonymous of longevity, something that will last the test of time, and it's something that can be applied both to our body, our mind, and also our experience overall. So in luxury goods and contemporary art, that will last forever, and that can resonate as an experience through time.
Yeah, it's about legacy, isn't it? So
absolutely.
And Karis, what about you?
Well, I think luxury is relative. It means something different to everybody, but I would say it's probably, for me, the freedom of choice. So that would be luxury.
Definitely. And finally, Esra, if I come to you.
Well, I've obviously got to concur with my colleagues here, but for me, it's health, it's family, it's well-being, and obviously a good glass of Moet as well.
Well, I think that's a lovely point to end on. I wish a glass of Moet was coming to me at 1 o'clock in the afternoon today. Alas, it might be a cup of tea. Sorry?
It can be arranged, apparently.
I will be issuing my address to all of you. Thank you so much, everyone, for today. And so I'd like to just take the opportunity to obviously thank our panelists, but thank our wonderful audience today. We've had a really great response. So the Accouter Global Wealth Report, Global Wealth and Luxury Report, in partnership with the Luxury Property Forum and Dataloft, will be published shortly. However, we hope you've enjoyed this little preview. We've been the Luxury Property Forum. As I said, our sole purpose is to advance the luxury property industry through networking, facilitating business introductions and collaborations, and sharing knowledge. If you would like to join, please fill out an application via our website. Thank you all so much, and have a good rest of your week. This webinar has been recorded, so the recording will be distributed through the various platforms. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Priya.
Thank you.
Thanks, Priya.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.